Still in a very untidy office, but getting there, getting there. Shelf behind me, they're working. Anyway, the new iOS 18 for iPhone and iPadOS 18 for, well, iPads. They won't be out officially for a few months yet, as you know, but the test versions are well into their stride, and there's a lot in here that is specifically good for you and me as writers. If you keep in mind, please, that any of this could change before September or October when these OSs are properly released, and if you will also bear in mind that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't risk your iPhone or iPad or your Mac on test software releases, not ever. And if you therefore ignore the fact that I've done exactly that, please let me show you what I believe I've found are the best new features for us. Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is 58 Keys, which, as ever, as always, is for writers like you and me who write on Macs and iPhones and iPads. Do subscribe, because we have so much to talk about that we shouldn't talk about, probably. Not yet. Not until these beta test versions are done and you and I can happily use iOS 18 and iPadOS 18 properly and officially and, most importantly of all, safely. Anyway, there is one big thing to just cover first. Apple Intelligence. We know the same things about this. Apple Intelligence, it's AI technology, and when it comes to the iPhone and the iPad, it's going to include many things, of which I think 3 are going to be relevant to you and me as writers again. I mean, first, perhaps most obvious is there's a grammar checker in what Apple is calling writing tools, a set of writing tools. Actually, in that writing tools, there's also an option to take some text that you and I just write and then have Apple Intelligence change it to be more professional, more relaxed. I don't know, funnier? More funny. Is there a more funny button? Thing is, everything you and I write, it's doing whatever it is we need to do, what we're writing about, but it's also advertising us. We are demonstrating our writing ability in every email, every document, every message, actually. So if there is a more funny button, I'm not going to push it. Well, maybe out of curiosity. Grammar checker, okay, I can see us ignoring that, but usefully ignoring it. Next, there's going to be a lot of summaries. You know, in Mail, you have that inbox column and it has every message listed, the title, the date, and it shows the first few words of the email. With Apple Intelligence, instead of the first few words, you will see a summary of the email. I quite like that. And similarly, at some point, when you go to a website in Safari, you'll be able to get a summary of the article. Yeah, given how much time I spend researching, I can actually see that being a help too. It's not going to save me time when the article is what I read. I'm not going to read the summary, I'm going to read the actual article, but it will help me rule out some articles or some websites as I'm searching around. And then last of the 3 to come, Siri. I love Siri, except when I really don't. Right now, in the beta test version of iOS 18, if I ask Siri to take me to my mum's house using Apple Maps, well, it will do exactly that. But it would also tell me, you don't appear to have an app called Maps. It's there, it's your... Calm. Also, by the way, I have to say, using Apple Maps, because sometimes Siri just wouldn't do it without that. Or you've had this as well. You ask Siri for something, and yeah, maybe it does it. Maybe it gets it completely wrong. But if you ask precisely the same thing again in half an hour's time, well, good luck getting the same result. All of that will apparently be fixed with Siri and Apple Intelligence. We can only hope. But I am hoping. Thing is, Apple Intelligence isn't here yet at all. It isn't even in the test versions yet. Still, even without that, that's the big thing about them, there is still so much in iOS 18 and iPadOS 18 to just enthuse at you about, including at least one thing I think could even deserve that, that magical term that Apple keeps using. I mean, really. Well, actually, tell you what, let's do one of those first. So, such as this, magical. Watch this, please. I tend to write a lot on the go, and you could argue that I should be looking out of the train window or taking in my surroundings or paying more attention as I drive. But yeah, no, here's the thing, got to finish this, and I can do it. We can do it on the iPhone. As it happens, I can do that, it turns out, without difficulty. But plenty of people can't, specifically because staring at that screen while you're in a motion in car or train or whatever, that difference, the screen, and that, it's enough to trigger motion sickness. Apple has added an optional feature called vehicle motion cues. Watch these, please. It's quite hard to show you this without the pair of us getting on a train together, but look at the black dots as you move, as your body and your iPhone are thrown around by traveling, those dots move to match the motion. So your eyes are seeing the motion. It is matching what your body is feeling, and that apparently at least cuts down on motion sickness. Now, as I say, well, I think that is incredible, but it's an option. And right now in the beta test, there should be a couple of ways to switch it on, but there's only one that's working at the moment. It's through Control Center. And have a look at Control Center, because it's had a huge redesign that I think is very good for us. For switching on these vehicle motion cues, yeah, but for starting a fast note while we think of something, and basically anything we want to do. Swipe down to see the new look Control Center, and you can adjust anything. You used to have quite limited options in Control Center, and none of them actually here in Control Center itself. You had to schlep off to a separate settings page to fiddle, come back, does it work, check. No. Now, press and hold, move anything around, resize things if you want, or add one new control, or 2, or 20. It's all about making Control Center give you the controls you need to do what you want and do so quickly. Actually, maybe a headline summary of both iOS 18 and iPadOS 18 is customization, making this right for you, including the first ever change to the home screen. Well, kind of. Yeah, no, let's be strictly speaking, we're right as we're accurate. This isn't the first ever change at all to the home screen on the iPhone and the iPad, because we got widgets before with the ability to pop larger things, widgets with information on them. And actually way back, right back at 2008, we got the ability to add apps to the home screen when we got the ability to add apps. But other than that, nothing. A grid of apps, that's your lot, off you pop. It's still your lot, but the difference now is that you don't have to fill the grid. You can do this, for instance, have just a single row of apps down one side. The idea is that if you have an image on your phone that you just like, well, you don't have to cover it up with app icons. I think a real benefit to us, though, is that you can arrange some key apps where you can just reach them without having to juggle the phone. It's all about positioning apps, well, yes, to make it look nicer, but also to make them easier, quicker to find and use. However, I love this, you can also make it harder, deliberately harder. You can actually hide apps and you can lock them too. Let me do locking first. If your iPhone has Face ID, so everything except the iPhone SE really, you can now require Face ID before an app will open. I'm not 100% sure about this. I mean, to get into your iPhone at all, someone has to use your face. So just having them do it again doesn't seem overwhelmingly necessary, except, okay, you unlock your phone, you go to show someone something on the phone, so you go at it, it unlocks, you hand it over, they look at it. At least this means they can't then also get into something you don't want. Trying it out, I put it first on my to-do app, OmniFocus, and actually I've left it on there. I did also put it on my Fantastical calendar, but I took it off after a while because overall this is excellent, right? I mean, not only can someone not get into your app while it's locked, Apple also stops the contents of that app being seen in, say, notifications. It's really as if the app is gone, except for ones like calendars, and there will be others. Every calendar app on the iPhone, so far as I know, and I did once have to review 7 of them in a row, actually uses at its heart the same database as Apple's own calendar app. And in fact, I think this is great. With those 7 apps I reviewed in a very dull week, I did not once have to think about taking my calendar entries out of one app and putting them into another. There was no importing, no exporting, there was just nothing. Open a new calendar app, my whole schedule was there. Add something to it, save it back, open it up in another calendar app, the new stuff, all of it, just there. But now, if I do choose to lock Fantastical, happens to be my calendar app of choice, someone with my iPhone could just open Apple's calendar app and see the same entries. All right, saying that to you, it's like, why don't I just delete Apple's calendar app? Okay, so, all right, there's that. Okay, I could hide it though. I could also hide it. because you can do that now. Hidden apps, they also have to be locked, but then they disappear from your iPhone and they go into this hidden folder at the bottom of your app library. Swipe from right to left, swipe through all the pages of apps you might have, and the last one is the app library. Swipe down, and there at the bottom is this hidden bit. What's really nice, I think, is that everyone has a hidden folder app there. Whether you hide an app or not, whether you ever look in the app library or not, there will be a hidden section right there, which means someone can't even infer that you do have a hidden app just because they found the hidden app section. Not unless they put the hidden folder in your face and it therefore unlocks. I recommend acting innocent and not letting other people into your iPhone at all. But speaking of people getting into your iPhone, you can get into your iPhone without using your iPhone. Actually, I suppose this is more a new Mac feature than a new iPhone one. But okay, on the Mac, you can use iPhone mirroring, and it works really well. Open up your iPhone on the screen without getting your phone out of your pocket. I'm honestly surprised how often I've been doing this in the last few weeks. One sensible example, my bank has a better iPhone app than it does a website. So sometimes I'll just, I'll open up the iPhone app on my Mac. That banking app uses Face ID, and Face ID won't work through iPhone mirroring because, you know, the iPhone can't see your face if you're looking at another screen. As it happens with that particular app, that particular bank, their app just kind of falls back to asking for a passcode instead. Most of the time, I think you're going to find that the apps just won't open. They'll fail to happen. Okay. I don't really see how that can change, but other things will. Okay. So right now, for example, with iPhone mirroring, there's the iPhone on your screen. You can't drag items onto or out of the iPhone from your Mac screen. You can't copy and paste. You can't move icons around. You can't get to Control Center either. At least some of that is coming at some point. Whether you do this on the phone itself or for some reason through iPhone mirroring, Apple Notes has some nice improvements for us as writers. I think this is the most impressive. 10 times 5 equals, look at that. That's typed. I typed that in Notes on my iPhone, but actually let's look at the same thing again on the iPad. The same thing, handwritten. Apple does use this word magical a lot, but you've got to give it to them for things like this. I mean, what other company would have thought of doing that, let alone done it in my handwriting? Kind of got to hope that it does it for you in your handwriting, or we are in trouble there. But anyway, Notes also now has audio recording, which it so surely should have had before that I'm starting to wonder, did it and I just missed it? But it's got live transcription as well. Strange thing, since I upgraded to the beta test of iOS 18, something else has changed, and I'm now seeing a feature on my iPhone that I ought to have seen before and for some reason didn't. If you are leaving me a voicemail message, at least most of the time, or at least when I notice and see the screen and for some reason don't answer, I see a live transcription on that iPhone screen. It's startlingly useful. And I think this new ability to do kind of the same thing in Notes is excellent. I'm used to recording audio and then later running it through a transcription app like Whisper Transcription on the Mac, but now here it is. There it is, done already. Okay, so far this is all about us as writers using an iPhone and iPad with the new system for work, for writing. But writers are people too, you know. And that means we piddle about a bit, we send emails, we read text messages, we take a lot of photos. Actually, I say that I can see photos being part of how you illustrate articles or websites. I mean, I do that too, but totally away from work. Apple's most visible change in iOS 18 and iPadOS 18 is the Photos app, and I really like it. You see more images at once, you swipe and slide through them faster. iPhones, I mean, they already have a very good search feature in them, but now the Photos app also does more organizing by days, I suppose, trips, people you were with, to mean that you have fewer photos to search through. I like it so much, I can't fully remember what it used to be like. Mind you, my photos are so badly organised. I have 55,000 photos on my iPhone. Any organisation will help. But speaking of helpful organisation, there is going to be a new feature in Apple Mail. Going to be. It isn't here yet, not even in the tests. But like Gmail has done for years, Apple Mail is going to sort your incoming email into categories like personal, work. Wonder if we could have rubbish spam I never subscribed to, something like that. I don't actually expect to use it much myself because I like email. I like reading the stuff. I don't like how Gmail and Microsoft Outlook actually make choices of which emails I will want to read. But I could be wrong there because we already have something of this and I do like it. Today in iOS 17, if you go to archive, say, a receipt from Amazon or something, Apple Mail recognises what it is and offers to move it to wherever it is you usually move these things. So in my case, for example, I have an inbox called Money, and iOS 17 knows to offer to move it to there. I used that enough that when it briefly stopped working a few months ago when I changed over iPhones, I actually missed it. What I've not missed, what I'm not going to miss, what I won't care about, but apparently many people will, is RCS. I've forgotten what it stands for, don't care. Messaging service, and to make a long story passable, the result of it is that Android users are going to be able to be mostly a part of iMessage conversations. Honestly, that's the thing in the States and nowhere else in the world, and I am somewhere else in the world, so shrug. But I like this in Messages. Messages on iPhone and iPad have gained a send later option. So rather than getting stuck in a ping pong message thread with someone in the middle of the night, you can write a reply and have it not be sent until tomorrow morning. Apple Mail already has this, and actually I've used it a lot on my MacBook Pro. But on the MacBook Pro, if you close the lid of your MacBook Pro, or if you shut down your Mac, put it to the Mac to sleep or something like that, and you don't open it all up, by the time you've said the email should go out, the email does not go out. The odds are actually, though instead your iPhone, it's on all the time. So in the iPhone's case, and the iPad maybe, you can just take for granted that send later will work. I am also going to take for granted that there are new emoji in iOS 18 messages, that there are exciting text effects, whatever. I'm not going to take for granted. This might just be in the States, I'm not sure yet. I'm not going to take for granted the fact that you can now send messages via satellite. So if you are stuck in a remote place, that's pretty good. So there is plenty to help us work, help us write, plenty to help us write to people. Since we're writers, though, we're also readers, and there is one big new thing for that as well. Safari is getting a new reader view in stages. It's long had reader view in some ways. It's if a website, it's impossible to read because of all the ads, the pop-ups, and it looks ugly in design, you can tap on the reader view and breathe. Like I say, some of the new stuff isn't here yet. And that actually, this is a common thing, isn't it, with this year's beta test versions. What we have got, though, already is a nicer look to Reader. We've got a few controls that are a bit quicker to get to, like choosing a font to read, like choosing a more restful background color, if you like. What we're going to get are this idea I mentioned of an AI-generated summary, in this case of articles. Go to a website, slip into reader mode, see a summary at the top. And if that's what you want to read, well then, obviously you can read on, but you can also click on a kind of contents list, an AI-generated contents list to jump to sections of the article. What we're also going to get later, at some point still, that I think will be particularly good for us, is a thing called Safari Highlights, though, within reader mode, within Safari itself. You go to a web page, and before you go into reader mode or anything like that, you just have Safari pulls out the things you need to know. Apple demonstrated this with a hotel website, showing that you went to the site and there was Safari, pulled out the address of it without you having to search through a long site. That sounds silly, hotel, address, obvious, but honestly, it's shocking to me how hard it is sometimes to find out a fact you need, such as an address. So I am hopeful that this will prove to be good for us. Even things that are here, right, are going to improve later, okay? One that I don't expect will change much before iOS 19 next year, though, is the new Passwords app. This is across the Mac, the iPhone, the iPad, and what it is really, it's just an extension of how Safari has been able to save your passwords for years and years. I remain a 1Password user, but if Apple's new Safari Passwords app, the separate passwords app, doesn't have all of the same features as 1Password, LastPass and all the rest, it is very good. It is strictly for passwords though, that's a thing. 1Password and all the other third-party password managers also hold credit card numbers, for instance, and we haven't got it yet, but you've got to imagine that will come to Apple's Passwords app sometime, maybe next year. In the meanwhile though, while we're thinking about money, there is now tap to cash-ish. Next time you split a restaurant bill, you can, in theory and in a lot of ways in practice, hold your iPhone next to someone else's and send them your share. They have to be on iOS 18 or later as well. They have to be on a modern iPhone as well. In fact, they've got to be on an iPhone, haven't they? That's one thing. But also, so far, they also have to be in America. Until it spreads to the UK, you're just going to have to hand me use notes, not in sequence. So tap to cash will only be on the iPhone, actually, and only in the States. Everything else you've seen so far, oh no, apart from that magical handwriting maths thing, that's on both the iPhone with iOS 18 and the iPad with iPadOS 18. The handwritten maths thing is just on the iPad. All of it, and this is truly amazing to me, all of it on both iPhone and iPad, the lot, everything you've just seen, can be controlled with your eyes. Seriously. You can have it so that apps open, that dialog boxes get ticked just by giving your device a glance. I think that's staggering, isn't it? I did actually find it really hard to use. Was I like, no, I want that button. Yeah. But I'm just playing with it. If I actually needed it, and doubtless I'll get used to it. And it is. Staggering is the word. Just amazingly well done. And as I say, it's staggering on both the iPhone and the iPad. But there are a couple of things that are just for the iPad. For instance, if you didn't know how to do something on your iPad, and you knew I did, you could now let me take over your iPad screen for long enough to show you. I don't mean handing it to me, I mean from a distance, through this, remotely, all that stuff. Also, more generally, Apple talks about there being improvements to freeform on the iPad, such as they call them creating scenes, group together different parts of your freeform. But I don't use freeform. You can see I don't use it. So I don't know why this new feature isn't on the iPhone, or is it just Apple didn't mention it on the iPhone stuff? Not sure. But apparently it's very handy. Let's go with that. Definitely for the iPad only though, is a promising new feature called a tab bar. In many, if not all apps, there is now a bar at the top and you can tap on it to go to commonly used sections of that app. So in Apple News, for example, the tab bar has a button that you can tap to just go straight to the sports section. I will never go to the sports section. I can't remove that button. I can't replace it with something else that maybe I do use a lot. You can edit the tab bar in all of these apps, but right now your options, they're different in different apps and they're generally very limited. So the end result is, I think in some apps it seems like a good idea and in others not so much. But one thing is, it doesn't get in your way. That's a good thing. If you're in Pages, for example, you'll see this bar in the section when you're opening documents or creating a new one. Go into that document, whatever it is, well, the tab bar is gone. It's not in your face, not in your way. I think the tab bar will change and it will develop between now and the official release of iPadOS 18. But at the moment, when it's useful, it's good. And it is something that helps us get on with our writing work. Yeah, no, this is a funny thing. When you first move to iOS 18 and iPadOS 18, well, okay, maybe you see this thing about customizing the home screen, the single row of apps and all this stuff. Oh, and definitely the very first time you swipe down for Control Center, well, you see immediately how improved that is. But otherwise, I think you wonder, what is the difference between iOS 18 and last year's iOS 17, and same with the iPad. And yet, in just a short while, just after you try the odd little new improvement you come across, or you hear about something and it's good, you find you don't want to go back. For example, I have two Macs, right, and I'm writing about the new macOS Sequoia. See the recording of the latest live 58 keys for all the details about that. So obviously I put macOS Sequoia on one Mac, in fact this one here, but I won't put it on both Macs. Test software does go wrong, and actually even this morning this Mac Mini crashed on me. First time in the beta test, but it crashed. It means though that while I'm being safe and keeping one on the old and one on the new, one is on the old, one is on the new, and going back to the old is peculiar. And in a similar thought, I kind of held out as long as I could, but in the end I had to update my iPad to the test iPadOS 18. I just had to. I've got no excuse. I just had to. Even when you think the changes are small, they really add up. And I think that these two new OSs for the iPhone and the iPad make these devices even better for you and me as writers. You just be sensible and don't install the test versions while I spend the next couple of months restarting this Mac and typing with crossed fingers on the betas. And in the meantime, that's it for this edition of 58 Keys. Thank you very much for watching. Now take care of yourself, Write more, it's important. And I'll see you soon.